satisfying the two requirements for equality.
But there is something wrong with that. So I have this friend of mine. He tried to prove that Jesus is equal to God mathematically. And by the way, don't mind my board. I just had to improvise this for the purpose of making this video. Then, as a background info, his name is Sapresh, and Sapresh is pretty much a brilliant person, very smart. I remember sitting side by side with him those days, 2014, in Abuja, as we represented our school in a competition, a course competition among universities students. And Sapresh would make the silver medal, and I made this bronze medal. So Sapresh is pretty much intelligent. But on this, I've reviewed his process, and I want to make this video to show that he's not really right in this very one. And that's what I want to achieve now. Now, in mathematics, when we want to start making proofs like this, we want to start defining our terms. God is a general name. To remove ambiguity, we want to identify which of the gods are we talking about, because man is a god. Anything can be a god. Anything that can be reverenced, anything that can be worshipped is a god. In that sense, you can say Jesus is a god. But you know that is not the very sense he's talking about. He's talking about the father-son relationship. So, which of the God he's talking about? I believe he's talking about the God that sent Moshe, that is Moses, to Egypt, because Moses asked, if I get there, who do I say sent me? He said that his name is Yahweh. Now, it is true that most persons don't really know the true name of the Almighty. They can say all sorts of things, but his name is well defined in the scripture. And some others are very much familiar with another form of this name, which is the Jehovah. And people are like Jehovah and Yahweh. They are all just the same thing, that it doesn't matter. But let me tell you something. This form Jehovah, even Jehovah Witnesses themselves, who are the major proponents of this form Jehovah, said in their book, Aids to Bible Understanding, they said, while we are inclined to the view that the more correct way to pronounce the divine name is Yahweh, we chose the form Jehovah because of people's familiarity with it. Let me tell you what the Catholics said about the name Jehovah too. Catholic says that Jehovah is a linguistic mistake. If you remember of our Assemblies of God, let me tell you what one of the pamphlets by Assemblies of God said. They said that there is no such name as Jehovah. If you are from a member of the SDA, it might interest you to know that the SDA agree. They said that the name by which the Almighty distinguishes himself from every other God is Yahweh, and definitely not Jehovah. So that is why we'll be using, which God are we talking about? We are talking about Yahweh. Let me use that in our equation. I will use that form. Now also, let's approach this Jesus. I usually don't use this form Jesus. A lot of persons, when they say Jesus, they know who they are talking about. But I usually don't use it because it's also a corruption. It's also a linguistic mistake. Also, because how did Jesus even come to be? Because I want to define our terms so that we remove every form of ambiguity. How did Jesus came to be? Jesus came from the word Yahshua. And this word actually means Yahweh is salvation, or the salvation of Yahweh, which is actually his purpose for mankind. Now, after the Babylonian captivity, Hebrews started shortening their letters. That is how Yahshua was shortened to Yeshua. Now, when the Greeks got a hold of the Bible, in the course of translation, instead of transliterating, they make a lot of error in this very name, Yeshua. That is how they got this form. If you look at the name of the son in Greek, you are going to see something like this, Asos. What they did here, this I in Greek is pronounced as Y. This one is representing Y, is still pronounced as Y, yeah. This one is still E. Now, but the Greeks, they don't have SH. They don't have a sound of SH. They represented that one as SO. SO. So it should have been Yeshua. Something like this, Yeshua. But also in Greek, words or masculine names will always end in S. Any masculine name will end in S. That's how they added this S. From Yeshua, this is actually sounding like Yeshua. That's how they added this S. That's how this S came. Now, after of the story of the Vulgate, after about 1,000 years, when Latin started propagating this thing, they transliterated this thing now. That's how Latin got this form, Asos, by reason of transliteration. That's how they got Asos. Now, remember this thing is still sounding as Y, so something like Yesos, You see how the error has been propagating? Now, when English got hold of this thing, and English did not actually have letter J before, what they now did when letter J was introduced, some about 500 years ago, not so long ago, they now changed any of these I that actually bore that pronunciation of Y. They changed from I to J. That's how they got from Jerusalem to Jerusalem and many others. That's how every of this I, they changed it to J. That is actually how you got your Jesus. So you see, a lot of corruption went along these years of changes, translation, and all those things. So that's why you can't hear me pronounce the name Jesus as the name of the Son, because I know the errors that bore that name. So that's why this Jesus, I will be using the correct form, which is Yahshua. Now, to prove this equation, my brother adopted the concept of set theorem, and in set theorem, to prove equality of two sets, say A is equal to B, all you need to do is to show that A is contained in B and B is contained in A. Now, to show this, he quoted John 10:30, where the Son said, I and my Father are one, and also quoted John, I think 14, verse 10, thereabout, where the Son said, the Father is in me, and I am also in the Father. So, by reason of that both of them are the same.
In another portion of the scripture where he said that I am in my Father and my Father is in me. So there he implies that he, Jesus, is in his Father and his Father is in him. So satisfying the two requirements for equality.
But there is something wrong with that. Now, first, what I will do is that I will show you why those statements is not satisfactory enough to prove this. And at the same time, when I'm done, I will now prove mathematically why this Yahshua is not equal to Yahweh. Right with me. Now, when you say that I and my Father are one, also make reference to Genesis. I think Genesis is 24 thereabout, where we talked about the man and the woman. The man and the woman shall be one flesh. Now ask yourself, we have man today, we have woman today, both of them are one. Does that make both of them the same identity? No. There is the man and there is the woman. Though they are one, that doesn't make them the same identity. That's one thing. Also, he talked about that the Son says he's contained in the Father and the Father is contained in him. But also remember that when Yahshua was praying for his disciples, he said that they also be one, just as you are in me, that they should also be in us. So in that prayer, what he's trying to say is that the disciples will be contained in him, which is Yahshua. Yahshua is contained in the Father. So also we are also, if you take it invariably, we are saying the Father is contained in Yahshua and Yahshua is contained in the disciples, because he said, let them, the same way I am contained in you and you in me, that is the same way I want them to be contained in us. So this is the explicit interpretation mathematically now. But we look at the disciples. Does that mean that Matthew is Peter and Peter is John? Does that mean that John is now Yahweh and Yahweh is Yahshua? That doesn't really make sense. So that statement that he is contained in him and him contained in Yahshua does not satisfactorily imply that both of them are equal. Just like I showed you, man and woman are two separate identities, yet they are one. The Father is contained in the disciples is contained in Yahshua, but they are two different identities. So with that, we cannot say that makes them equal, or that makes them the same. So in that case, oneness is not the same thing as sameness. Now, sir, if you go by these my explanations, you will find out that you did not actually prove equality. Rather, you proved another concept which is true. That is the concept of isomorphism. You actually proved that A is isomorphic to B. Now, if we talk about isomorphism, it will take us to a concept in mathematics we know as the Cayley's theorem. What is Cayley's state? Cayley's theorem states that every finite group G is isomorphic to the subgroup of its symmetric group. That is to say that G is isomorphic to the subgroup of its symmetric group, where n is the odd order of the group. And you remember the Dr. Ezako teaching us those days, what is the significance of this Kelly's theorem? What Kelly was trying to explain to us that whenever we have an isomorphic relationship, that it doesn't matter which one I choose to work with. So that if you choose to work with this group, and I choose to work with this group, whatsoever operation I perform in this very group of mine, for the fact that it is isomorphic to this your own, that we are going to get the same results. But truly, isomorphism does not mean equality, because this group has its own separate entities element, and this one have own identical element. But the operations here and the operations here are going to be the same because of the isomorphic relationship between them. Now, if we go by that, you will find out that you satisfactorily prove the isomorphic relationship between Yahshua and Yahweh, in the sense that if you work with this and you are working with this, you are actually going to get the same result. They have the same mission, the same purpose, the same everything. As far as results and purposes are concerned, they are very much isomorphic, yet they are not equal. And I'm coming to prove how they are not equal in a moment. Now, what I want to do right away is to satisfactorily, mathematically prove that Yahweh is not equal to Yahshua. Now, I will still adopt the concept of set theorem like you used. If I want to prove that two sets are not equal, you remember those days in class, Dr. Ezako, Dr. Gunadi, Dr. Eze as well. They say it's very simple. It's very simple. What do I need to do? If I have two sets, A and B, to show that A is not equal to B, all I need to show is this. If I can find one element, X, that is element of A, but that very X is not an element of B. If I can just find one thing that is in A, but that thing is not in B, I'm done. That satisfactorily proves that A is not equal to B. It's also, you can take the reverse side. If I can find one that is in B, and that thing is not in A, that is enough. Just that one thing that I found is enough to prove that A is not equal to B. Remember, our A is representing Yahshua and B is representing Yahweh. So if I can find one thing in Yahweh that is not in Yahshua, it is enough to prove that Yahweh is not equal to Yahshua. And in a moment, if we take a look into the scripture and go to Matthew 24, I think around 36, you will find where the Son was talking about. He said that the hour and time no one knows, not the angels in heaven, nor the Son. Only the Father in heaven knows the hour and time. What is that telling me? That I have found something in the Father, in Yahweh, that is not contained in Yahshua. Unless Yahshua was lying that day, there is a part of wisdom that the Yahweh has that this one does not have. And by that reason, by that singular reason, it is satisfactory and enough to say that Yahweh is not equal to Yahshua. Yeah, the fact is that I really like the dimension where you took the whole thing and it's enjoyable. At least it kickstarted a lot of things. All this while I've abandoned mathematics but it really kickstarted a lot of things and I really enjoyed following up in this. Thank you very much, sir.